As Sue is unable to join us this evening, I suggest deferring the item 6.4 to the next SEAC meeting. All those in favor of approving the agenda as amended, opposed? Oh, all those in favor?
Sorry, I just don't have it in front of me. 6.4 is the impact of participation.
The impact of participation and attendance on secondary student grades.
Oh, okay.
Yes, Sue would like to be able to lead that discussion.
Fair enough. Okay, thank you.
So, all those in favor? 4, so we have 5, 6, it's carried. Moving on to item 4, delegations. We have one delegation tonight. I will call the delegation by name to please come to the table to provide their delegation. Following a delegation, up to 3 committee members may ask a question of clarification. The response shall be for up to 1 minute each. And please note that the delegate will not enter into debate or discussion. Also, please refrain from discussing personal information regarding students or staff to protect the privacy of identifiable individuals. I would now like to call upon Jennifer Nickerson. You have 4 minutes.
I'm just coming for moral support.
Hello everyone, my name is Jennifer and I'm here tonight to speak about my 5-year-old daughter, Arizona. Arizona has a diagnosis of autism, visual impairments, developmental delays, pretty severe. She's nonverbal and she's G2 ed. In September of 2025, Arizona was excluded from her mainstream school, junior kindergarten for the first 6 weeks of school. While her peers attended every day, she could not attend at all. Although we understand there are many moving parts, the results were the same. Arizona was left without meaningful education. 6 weeks into the school year, she was granted only 1 hour a day, which required me and her father to sit in the parking lot to wait for her. For a child with, like Arizona, with exceptional needs, 1 hour schedule was confusing and very stressful for her. By the time Arizona was beginning to understand that she was at school, enjoying her time, having fun, it was time to leave. A child with autism, transitions are very difficult. The consequences of exclusion extend beyond missing classroom time. On December 11th, I lost my mom, and I'm sorry. She died of cancer. And on March 13th, we ended up in a shelter. We lost our home because we weren't able to work to afford suitable housing with Arizona not being in school all day. I'm a mother of 5 children. 4 of my children are currently living with me in the shelter. Arizona is not my only child with exceptional needs. My other children have significant needs too. But Arizona is by far my most vulnerable child. She's nonverbal, medically complex, and cannot advocate for herself. That meant I had to be her voice. During this time, I reached out to our local OCBSB parent community. What I found was a network of parents who understood exactly what we were going through. They helped me process the grief, frustration, and uncertainty. They shared resources, offered guidance, and encouraged me to keep pushing forward. Their support reminded me that we are not alone, and there is a strong community of families advocating for children with exceptionalities across our board. Living in a homeless shelter is not just a matter of uncertainty. There's also a tremendous amount of stigma attached to it. When we made the decision to share our story publicly, it felt incredibly vulnerable. We were opening up our family struggles, our housing situation, and our daughter's educational barriers for everyone to see it. It felt like our entire lives were on the line. On April 16th, our story was raised publicly by Chandra Pasma, MPP for Ottawa, Nepean, Western Ontario's education critic at Queen's Park. For the first time, we felt heard. The very next day, Arizona received a full day of school. In her mainstream kindergarten class, nursing support was put in place for her G-tube feeds and finally began receiving the education she so rightfully deserved. Today, Arizona attends school from 10 o'clock until 3:40. She is learning, growing, socializing, and she's thriving. This is a success story, but it should not have taken media attention, political advocacy, and months of fighting to get there. Most importantly, this is not just about Arizona. There are many families across Ottawa facing similar barriers right now. Exclusions are often accepted as part of the process. They should not be. Every child has the right to safe, meaningful, and equitable education, regardless of the complexity of their needs. I'm grateful that Arizona has now been offered a placement program where she will have access to specialized education, multidisciplinary supports, and services she needs to succeed. The relief that our family feels is enormous. Our goal has always been, and always will be, giving Arizona a successful future. I just want to finish this up by thanking everyone who helped us get here, including her school, Chandra, and the parents who stood beside us along the way. But families should not have to become experts in advocacy, navigate endless red tape, speak to the media, or reach a crisis point before their children receive supports. Arizona finally has what she needs. My hope is that the next child will not have to wait as long, and that the next family will not have to fight as hard. Thank you.
Thank you for your delegation. Are there any questions for this delegate? Sonia?
What were the reasons given for the exclusions? Because it sounds like, and I could be wrong, but it sounds like she was excluded quite quickly. What were the reasons for the that were given for the exclusion?
Finding EA support for her one-on-one. She was given 25% of support, which the school realized that she needed a lot more than that. So trying to come up with that support, getting the vision team to come in and ensuring that her surroundings were safe due to her cortical visual and lower peripheral vision loss. Making sure nursing was set up to ensure that she would have adequate nutrition throughout the day. And ensuring that the place was safe and that she would be safe attending. So there was a lot of moving parts that had to come together before she could attend school safely.
I'm trying to quickly think of a follow-up to that. Okay, so those were the reasons for the exclusions that were given, and then I understand there were a lot of steps in advocacy and obviously stressful situation for you and your family to get her the support. What supports is she receiving now? You said she was in a placement?
She was offered a placement position for September. So in school, because we moved to the shelter, she was far away from the school that she was attending. And to get her set up in a new school closer to where we were moved to, it would take again a month and a half, just given off historical events that happened. So we decided that we were gonna keep her at that school. So the school kind of worked things around to provide her longer days with supports in order for her to be able to attend school.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, Jessie?
I want to thank you for coming and sharing. It obviously takes a tremendous amount of energy, and what you've gone through this year is really extraordinary. So thank you for taking some extra energy to come and share the story with us so that we can all learn and do better as a result of it. So it's not really a question to say thank you, but that's how I wanted to start. I was thinking about that, the transition that we would kind of envision for kiddos coming into the system who have needs that are not kind of like a surprise, right, to you and your family. You would have had a good sense of her before she entered school. So I wondered if you had any thoughts about what that could have looked like so that it wasn't, using up the school year to kind of figure that stuff out. Were there different kinds of transition options provided or that you were aware of to kind of ease her way into the school year?
Unfortunately, at the time, no. It was either she had to wait. There was no trying to go an hour ahead. There was, from the very get-go, I was trying to, what if I come to class with her for an hour just so she can maybe begin the transition earlier, but that wasn't an option. Again, I guess, privacy reasons, being in a classroom with children and whatnot. So it was, we're trying. Every time I would call the school, when is the start date? We're trying. We've got this going, we've contacted this person. This person's coming next week. I do know that they had a few people from the board come into the school to observe her as well, to try and initiate more supports for her. So essentially, things didn't really start moving for her until April. Is when she started getting longer days. Before that, she was getting from 1 hour to just 2.5 hours. And she was at the 2.5 hour for majority of the school year. So our biggest advocating was to get her into a specialized placement program so she would be able to attend all day like every other child that is in school, 4 years old. So that's what our fight was, that's what our end goal was to ensure she would get a full day of school.
Moving on.
Just a minute, I have a question. My question is to Bob Clemendon. Will you show some courage and apologize to what you have done to this family? And will you keep your commitment to the people in this room and tell the Minister of Education that the OCDSB is woefully underfunded in special education? You claim, you claim you're a good auditor. You claim you care about kids. You have not kept your commitment to the people of the OCDSB. No, ask him if he'll answer me. Ask him if he'll answer me. This woman and her family is homeless. They're homeless. Because we can't give her children what they need. And he's up there looking at us. Say something, Bob. Say something. Show some leadership. Oh, what's funny, Bob? Why are you smirking? What's funny? This isn't funny.
Moving on to item 5, review of special education advisory committee minutes. I now call for a mover to approve the minutes of the May 6, 2026 meeting. Anyone to move the minutes of the May 6, 2026 meeting?
Is there anything in the minutes to move? Is there anything to read in the minutes?
Sonia? That the meetings from the May 6, 2026 SEAC meeting be approved. This motion is debatable, but is restricted to amendments, and amendments are restricted to the accuracy of the minutes. This motion is approved by the majority of the votes cast. All those in favor? So it's carried. Moving on to item 6, matters for discussion. Item 6.1, the forward agenda has been provided. Are there any additions or changes?
Can I just ask a question, Anthony?
Yes.
So on the forward agenda, it looks like the majority of the things were points that Sue was raising tonight, so those were the points that you mentioned would be moved to the next meeting. Am I understanding that correctly?
We'll still carry on with the school board SEAC chair letters.
Okay.
And then earlier, as mentioned, the impact of the participation and attendance on secondary student grades will move to the next meeting or thereafter, whenever she's available.
Thank you.
Pete?
Hey, thanks Anthony, and thanks everyone. So I'm, just to introduce myself, because I don't speak much at these meetings, I'm Peter Davidson. I'm the alternate member for ABC Ontario, for SEAC, and I, as it relates to the forward agenda, I'd like to put something in the fall time frame, probably later in the fall, to talk about technology use for neurodiverse kids or kids with special educational needs. And the reason I brought this up, it's a larger conversation about technology use in the classroom. And as the technology use plan is going to get refreshed, as I understand it, because it goes until 2027, there's a concerted effort by parents of neurodiverse or special education requirement kids, but writ large, the technology plan needs a revamp from a guardrails perspective, from a lot of parents' assessments that I talked to, not just gifted kids, but kids across the neurodiverse world. So, and I think writ large, OCDSD is focused on technology integration in the classroom and not much on guardrails from a usage perspective, and that is especially prevalent with kids with special educational needs. We talk about assistive technology in classrooms, which helps some neurodiversities, but we don't talk about the other side of it, where technology can be dysregulating for a lot of kids with special needs. And so I think we have to have a more fulsome conversation about what, if anything, ought to be put in the technology plan when it gets refreshed from a special education perspective. So for discussion, but that's kind of my request for a fall SEAC somewhere probably in the October-November timeframe.
Thanks, Pete. We will certainly add that to the board agenda.
Okay, great, thank you.
Anyone else? All right. Moving on to item 6.2, I will now call upon Superintendent Stout and Assistant Principal Leon to present report 26-016 Special Education Plan 2025 to 2026. Superintendent Stout and Assistant Principal Leon to introduce the report.
Thank you, Anthony. So this is one of the main mandates of the Special Education Advisory Committee, is to help review the standards of the Special Education Plan on an annual basis. And so in the fall, you'll recall, we bring forward a series of the standards that we review on a monthly basis. And then there are additional standards that can be, that we ask you to review independently. This work is led by Assistant Principal Lyon and is certainly a huge amount of work. If you've flipped through the appendices, you'll see it's over 100 pages of information that is curated over the year to try to ensure that there's a fulsome picture of our special education service delivery model for the district. It is something that does go to the Ministry of Education for final approval, and then is posted on the website typically in the middle of July. So I'll pass it over to you, Deb, for your presentation of the report.
Thank you, Superintendent Stout. We started the review process last September. In the September meeting, the SEAC reviewed the role, responsibilities, and composition of SEAC and the special education staff. In October, we moved on to early identification procedures and intervention strategies and equipment. In November, we looked at IPRC and individual education plans. In December, transportation and model for special education. You also had some availability to look at the other standards and provide comments to us, which some of you did, and we incorporated those comments into the special education plan. Not only do we look at SEAC to review our special education plan, we also look at other departments. So facilities and OSTA are all engaged in the review of the special education plan. Some of the key changes to the plan this year include continued focus on staff development in terms of inclusive education practices with more targeted professional development for educational assistants. And you'll hear from Superintendent Stout later about some of the PD that we provided for educational assistants and how we're building capacity with that employee group in particular. Other key changes to the plan was an updated consultation process that integrates current LSS initiatives, providing more opportunities for working groups to offer feedback for future planning. So we are looking at consulting a variety of groups and gathering their feedback so that we can be targeting our plans to move forward based on some specific feedback from the appropriate people. In the moving forward section of the standard, that's always the interesting section to read. That section outlines upcoming work or next steps that we're working on related to the information shared, updated to reflect planning and initiatives for the upcoming year. Staff at LSS and the entire board is committed to continuous improvement and opportunities to increase the accessibility of the information for staff, parents, guardians, and where appropriate students. And that's what I'm really focused on currently this year, last year, and again, that's what we're going for next year. In terms of communication, we're bringing this forward for your approval, knowing that we can only make minor approvals at this time. Anything of significant change, you will again, once September rolls around, be able to give us those changes at that time. What we need to remember is that this plan is based on that current year, so what happened this year, not next year. So we will look to review this year's plan next year to update it for 2026, 2027. So there is a special education plan attached for your review or for you to look at and approve tonight so that we can then forward it to the supervisor and then on to the ministry, and as Kate said, posted on the website. It is a legal requirement that every board in Ontario is required to do, and it has to be on our website by July 31st and submitted to the ministry.
Thanks, Ed. So it is quite a fulsome document, as you can see. If there are any questions or points of clarification, happy to take them at this time.
Anyone? Points of clarification?
I have
Yes,
a super
Jess?
tiny one, which is maybe not even right. I was just looking at those ancient categories. And I felt like speech should be there.
Sorry, you're looking at which categories?
The exceptionality categories.
Within the IPRC, which standard
Yeah,
are you
so
looking at?
page 28.
Yep.
And I'm used to seeing speech as one of those, the 5 under communication.
I'll go in and have a look. If it,
Yeah.
it may have, sometimes in the editing process, things get deleted, so certainly on page 28, you'll note to go have a look and make sure that all the exceptionalities are listed appropriately.
Thanks.
Yes, Ian?
It's just more so from a point of understanding. Timeline-wise, we're looking at release online for July 31st. Feedback received by September of this year, if I understood correctly. The date or the cutoff to receive.
So we start the review again in September. So we have been reviewing this plan from September till now, and we're in the process of submitting it because SEAC's already reviewed the plan, and we're just presenting the changes we made as a result of that review. And the plan should be posted by July 31st. In September, we look at the plan section by section again and make further suggestions for next year.
Gotcha. And then this is for the 2026, 2027 school year.
The one you're looking at is 2025, 2026, so the current school year, this school year.
Okay, gotcha. I'm just looking
It's
at,
not it's not a plan for next year, it's this year's plan.
this is year's plan, okay.
And it's kind of odd that way.
Another week, you know.
But I will say that that's where we included the moving forward section, so that's something that, I think maybe 3 or 4 years ago, we were recognizing that it's hard for, the way it is designed is retroactively, and so it's a little bit, it seems funny. That's how it is designed by the ministry, but what I can say is, as a district, we decided to add those more moving forward sections to kind of give some indication to the committee of what you can expect in the year coming in terms of some of those key action items that we've got on our work plan.
Okay. Follow-up question to this, if I may. The way that the ministry is rolling this out and how the school is responding to that, does it provide enough leeway, wiggle room to be able to implement these in a timely fashion? Because again, this is my understanding, so I apologize, I am as new to this as it can possibly be, so my apologies. I'm looking at it from project rollout or project management perspective. Do we have enough time to receive the information given how we're supposed to receive it from the ministry, and do we have enough time to properly implement?
So the special education plan is based on a policy document called Special Education in Ontario. And that is an overarching policy document that helps guide special education in all schools across Ontario. And so the intention of that document is that we are taking the information within that policy document and making it OCDSB specific. So you're kind of going from this high level ministry kind of guiding document into the practical, what it looks like in our school board type of document. A lot of the items in the special education plan would look similar year over year. For example, something like the service delivery model, something like the IPRC, Identification Placement Review Committee, something like the individual education plan. Those are pieces of work that while they might get tweaked from time to time, mostly the philosophy is similar. So what you see in the report, for example, a good place to look would be like staff development. That looks retroactively of what we have done. But we are already planning, of course, looking forward to how we're going to continue the staff development that is already in place and what are the areas of need that we need to be focusing on based on feedback from the committee, based on feedback from our working groups. After we run PD, we ask for feedback forms, so we try to incorporate that. So while it does seem retroactive, it is always evolving as we're going. So we are writing the plan as we're going through it. And like I said, that moving forward section is really intended to help set the stage for what's upcoming.
So the plan brings all the philosophies together, and the philosophies are already shared.
The word plan, I think, that makes it seem, it is a little bit deceiving maybe, I don't know, because it is really a report on what has happened. And our plan for moving forward. So it's so I think that the word plan makes it seem as though it's something that we are planning for, but this is a report of what has happened and helping us at the stage for moving forward.
To help us prepare for the future. That makes sense. Thank you.
No problem.
Anyone else? I have one.
Oh, yeah, sure.
I don't know if it could be done in this particular one or considered for the next time. Is that for helping us review, and anyone else who looks at the plan to understand what's new, and for us when we're reviewing it for providing feedback and for adoption of the new plan, is like say considering for after just putting in after the table of contents, a section actually announcing what has been the key changes, the updates for this plan each year. So it's changes for this to this year, and then explaining, for example, this section summarizes key annual updates to the special education plan, including changes arising from the ministry requirements, work processes, SEAC feedback, and ongoing improvements to programs and services, something like that to that effect, and then listing the changes and from where those changes came from, whether it be from SEAC recommends or other sources. And then that way we have a better understanding of how big, how large those changes are and what changes were. And that would be really helpful in the review. And then I think that's the biggest one. I had a couple others that I could probably bring up later on at the appropriate time regarding helping parents understand where to start for IPRCs while preserving the right to request an IPRC, because in terms of the IPRC section explains a lot how to go through the process of the IPRC, but what happens if they just are so confused? Maybe it's easier to just consult with the explained to consult with the team, the local team at the school, whether it be the learning resource team or the principal, and then but they're leaving them the understanding the right to reserve to still make a request in writing. And then thirdly, the complaint resolution that was introduced, the new complaint resolution process, but explaining also that that where appropriate in respecting the complaint, the privacy and confidentiality themes identified through the complaint resolution practices may inform future updates to communication tools, procedures, family supports, and the annual special education plan review process itself. And so that way it's a more forward-looking and yeah.
So, thanks for those suggestions, Anthony. It's really, it's helpful. We recognize that this sort of document, we've spent a lot of time over the last few years trying to make it less, try to make it more accessible for families, less edu-speak, these sorts of things, and more into kind of what is accessible for families. So certainly those, what I hear from you is continuing to try to dig deeper into those. So I think if that's certainly your first suggestion around like adding something at the beginning of each section, I think we can look into that for next year. Some of the specifics, I would ask you to again highlight them, but I've made note of them here already for next year. I think part of what I want the committee to understand is within that special education policy document, there are specific things that we must include. And so there are within each standard 5 or 6 pieces of information that I have to include. And so sometimes those pieces, despite our effort to try to make them a little more accessible to the general public, we also can't remove certain pieces. So that's just, I would just remind the committee of that as well.
So then, thank you. That the report 26016 Special Education Plan 2025-2026 be received. This motion is not debatable or amendable. This motion is approved by the majority of votes cast. All those in favor? One, two, three, four, 5, 6. So carried.
Sorry, did we have a mover?
Oh, do we have a mover first? Okay, Jess. Are there any questions? I now call for that's where
It's repeated. It's not, it's a two-part procedure.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, so the first motion is just that the committee receives the report, and then the second one is that they approve.
Okay. So now I call for a mover on the recommendation.
I've lost the thread.
Oh, well, okay, so, this is, oh, no, sorry. That the Special Education Plan 2025-2006 be approved as attached as Appendix A to the report number 25016. This motion is debatable and amendable. This motion is approved by the majority of votes cast. All those in favor? Opposed? All those in favor? Do I need someone to move this?
I'll move it.
Sonia? All those in favor? 3, 4, 5, 6 carried. Moving on to item 6.3, we have for discussion the letters provided from other school board SEAC chairs. So there's, Sue, brought up the question of, whether we want to, provide, as a committee, do we want to draft a letter to send to the ministry? What would be the intention behind this? Is there an outcome that we're seeking? If we do decide that we want to draft a letter, what are some of the key topics we would like to include in our letter? And so, and are there any questions? Yes.
So this was brought up a while ago and we're only getting to it now, so I've lost where the actual attachments of the examples of letters were they provided to it? I forget.
Yeah, they're in the forward agenda
Oh,
under
they are.
June. There's 5. The 5 that were sent to our board are attached there.
Oh, yeah, there they are. So are we supposed to like discuss if we're gonna do that now? Okay. So I'm in favor of sending a letter to the ministry based on the different, or the commonalities that we have with the other districts. And their letters, again, apologies, I haven't had time to prep anything for this, but I think that we should probably like take it away, and maybe, you know, get together and put something together, but I think it would be advantageous, and I think, you know, for the board, for the, you know, to hear from, or for the ministry to hear from different boards and what the challenges and what, even what, you know, positive outcomes that we have, I think that we need to, I think we need to do it, so. I don't know how everybody else feels.
Yeah, I would agree with Sonia. When I went through the letters, I mean, they're quite different issues, so when I first got the batch, I thought, oh, we're coming together on a couple of common issues, but actually it looks like some of them are about the issues with supervision and the offices, and then some of them are about funding generally. So I think we would have to decide, I don't think it would make sense to have a 19, I think it would make sense to identify what for us, not all of these boards, I guess, are under supervision, so those are obviously unique to some of us, so I also have not prepared a draft of anything like that, but I think that if we could identify, you know, a smallish number of key priority areas for us that we wanted to make sure that we're really strong on, and I definitely think we should add our voices to the other SEACs that are doing the work of sending these things out, so yeah, agreeing in principle with the promise of doing some work to help to draft something, I guess is my thought.
I don't want to speak on behalf of Sue, but I think she's willing to draft something to
Okay.
bring forward to you. But I think she's looking for feedback on if there are specific if there are specific points in these letters that people feel they see the same for the Ottawa Carleton District School Board, that would be helpful for her to know. Or if there are other things that are specific to the Ottawa Carleton District School Board that you would want to highlight to the minister's office, that would be important for her to know as well. So I think she has expressed a willingness to write on behalf of SEAC as the chair. I think she's seeking if there are specific topics that are listed there that you see as important, would help her to start to draft something perhaps to bring back to you.
Maybe we could start a thread.
Yeah.
I can already see there's going to be several that are probably pretty consistent with discussions we've had around this table and that we want to reinforce, so
Yeah.
we could start an email thread and highlight some of those.
I agree. I think that there's definitely a lot of common themes that have come up over the around the table over the last year. Some concerns that we've had and questions that we've had for a while, and some of it really isn't at this level, right? It's ministry level. So I think that I'm happy to look for those commonalities through my notes. You guys see me typing and writing all the time, so I have a few. So happy to do that and start in a thread, and then we can present it to Sue and go from there. That works.
was wondering if we pull together the different ideas, like, and refine how to list them, would there be like some sort of software, or I don't know, thought exchange or something where we could see what comes up stronger, like to clarify, like would that be something we'd be interested in using, something to rank them, like as being most important to be able to figure out what to put in the letter more importantly? Is like to quantify it more clearly, like what is important for the whole committee, and assuming that we already have a short list, and then see what is really strong out of them, and then it doesn't necessarily mean that something low is not important. Like someone could speak up and say, this is really something I think is really important, and then we could debate whether we should still include it or not. And then, like in that sense,
Maybe we could get started and see if maybe we'll have 3 issues that we feel like we're really confident about, or if we have a dozen and suddenly we have a dozen people chiming in with lots of opinions, which is possible, but also somewhat less likely, then maybe we could try out a system.
We have a large group of folks at this table, and there's many more outside of this room as well. We all come from different departments, different fields. That's on here. Different from the operational side of things, so we're all going to have different inputs. So some of the thread capturing everything, so we can just at least put it on the radar to discuss. Someplace where we're able to carry the conversation versus having to stop, reconvene, stop, reconvene. Whereas we can table everything and find some way of filtering or prioritizing what are the top items that we can target for the letter. Because I've seen this in some of the departments that I work at with the city, is that we have multiple different departments, they all have their different focuses, they're all just as valid, but how do we prioritize them? And having a meeting, in our case, it was once every month or so. The passage of time is just too much, so some way of capturing it and working at it continuously and providing input, that would work.
I think we'd be offline for that, yeah.
Oh, yeah,
We'd be
absolutely.
doing it offline. Usually what we would do is just start a shared document or an email or something like that and
Yeah.
see how it goes.
and then like I think it'd be really important to find what's common to us all, but would it be important, like say for each individual, like groups, if there's something important, like to not like that since there's different interests involved, not also leaving room for like the top of one item that's unique to, if it might be unique to each different group, that to be allowed to bring forward, if or for to be represented at the same time, if it's really important, or stick to commonalities.
I think we have to figure out what the commonalities are first.
If I
That's where-
Yeah, if I may, I think there's some sample letters, like there are letters that have come in, and so some of them have gone by themes, some of them are a little bit more, I'm gonna say like a narrative style. So I think it would be probably beneficial to go through the letters and maybe for yourself reflect upon, oh, this theme is a theme that I think is something that impacts us. I think you also have ideas in your own minds of this theme has come up a lot at our table, so how can we include this theme? So it might help to do a bit of a brainstorm as a committee offline perhaps, or you can start to throw out some topics here that we can just make note of, and then what gets framed around that theme, I think could be specific to perhaps a specific group, or in more general terms for the entire community.
And then I can go over some of quickly over the letters, some of the key topics that were brought up in the letters. So, for example, without going into where the sources were, 2025 Accessibility to Ontarians with Disabilities Act mandate, interministerial wraparound support, special incident portion sustainability, special education mental health funding priorities, inadequate special education funding, staff reductions in special education services, significant fiscal pressures across our system, community mental health supports, capital investments, alignment with accessibility legal requirements. Concerns that affect local governance, community engagement, and the important role of boards in supporting student success. Disappointment and concern regarding the Ontario government's removal of trustees from school boards and under provincial supervision. The appointment of provincial supervisors, having significantly reduced community engagement and the transparency of board activities. The lack of transparency and accountability as school boards under provincial supervision prepare the budgets for upcoming school year. The removal again of school board trustees and appointed provincial supervisors, the situation making it worse for the in general, and previous trustees attending every SEAC meeting, the concern there that I believe that no longer the case. And then it's become harder for the SEAC to reach parents of students with disability and special education needs. The request to broadly consult with parents of students with disability, special education needs. Student improving the student and family support offices with some additions so they can effectively serve better. Yeah, so different things like that.
So I can commit to putting out a shared document to everybody. Why don't we start there? I'll put in my thoughts with a few like sort of top agenda items, if you will, that I think we can kind of take off from there, and then I'll have that out to you guys by the end of the week, and then we can kind of go from there, discussing like what we want to put in there and what we want to see, and kind of have a, you know, those top sort of 3 or 5 items that we want to really convey to the ministry, and yeah, we can go from there if that works.
Thanks, Wendy.
Sure. I'll just remind myself.
And I could also run the letters that the other letters through AI to find what's common in them and some things that are maybe different between them that stand out or that are really important for them. Moving on to item 7, department update. I now call upon Superintendent Stout to provide her report.
Great, thank you very much. So June, as you know, is a hectic month in schools, lots of exciting things happening, lots of wrap-up happening, and certainly lots of turning our minds to what will be coming forward in the next school year. We have received the Ministry Priority Professional Development Day themes from the Ministry of Education. And so we were excited in Learning Support Services to see that one of the key areas of focus for next year was special education and individual education plans. And so our team's been busy mapping out what that will look like over the course of the 3 mandatory ministry PD days. That's one of 4 main topics. So just to be clear, it doesn't mean every ministry priority day will be spent on that. However, we have decided to really try to map out for the system clearly the flow of the IEP process. So the three PD days, the first one is August 31st. So we will have an intentional kind of know your learner type of module that will be run in schools, helping to set the stage to really get to know who the students in your class are, but also digging into an IEP that might already exist for a student. And turning your mind to setting those IEPs. IEPs go home within the first 6 weeks of school, and so that's a really fantastic opportunity for educators to, in their professional development, be really thinking clearly about what goes into writing a good IEP goal and how we can set up students so that those IEPs are really representative of their needs in the classroom. October 2nd is the second ministry PD day, and so we've set aside a little bit more robust amount of time at that particular PD day so that we can be really focusing on writing IEP goals and working together, educators working together to be thinking about what an IEP goal is and is it reflective of the learner in front of them, and how families and students are engaged in that process with them. And then the final ministry priority day is on November 23rd, and so that lines up nicely with the monitoring cycle. And so what we are hoping is that goals will be set in the beginning to middle of October, and by the end of November, we will be seeing if we're starting to see some gains in some of those IEP goals. So we're really trying to map out the professional development for educators to match a cycle for our individual education plans. In addition, we'll be focusing on other key priorities around special education that we think would be important topics that we've heard from educators, from principals, as well as from our educational assistants about topics that are that they would like to know more about when it comes to special education. So that was very exciting for us because, of course, whenever special education is the priority for the ministry, it means that it's getting talked about more in schools, and we appreciate that. As Deb mentioned, a big focus this year was really around setting the conditions for educational assistants to be seen as extremely valued members of the team, but also valuing their professional learning opportunities. And so throughout the year, we've had very specific, targeted, prioritized, practical professional development that is intended to be responsive to the role of an educational assistant. We saw a steady growth in staff attendance throughout the year in our professional development program. So starting in August, there was a professional summer learning institute that we led a summer learning opportunity for about 200 educational assistants working with Dr. David Tranter. Throughout the year, there were a variety of educational professional development opportunities for educational assistance around executive functioning, building independence, de-escalation strategies, elopement, restorative practices, the list goes on and on. It was a lot of engagement with a variety of our multidisciplinary teams so that educational assistants could see their role within the different aspects of a child's learning experience. So throughout the year, like I said, we saw increased numbers, both hybrid, in-person and virtual learning opportunities. And certainly got a lot of positive feedback about the sessions that were being offered. So as we turn our minds to next year, we certainly want to be responsive to the feedback that we've gathered. We heard that educational assistants would like opportunities to work in smaller groups. And so we'll be providing opportunities throughout the year to be working in smaller groups within their superintendencies, within some of their school-based teams. Locally in a variety, and bringing together kind of a family of schools type of approach for them to start to build that community, to look at mentoring opportunity and look at best practices across schools. We're also looking at some specifics, professional development to our specialized program class teams to ensure that we're really addressing the needs of the students in those classes. We're also looking at opportunities where they can work along their school team to really showcase their role as an educational assistant and how they can best support each student in the school that they're working with. As I said, there'll be virtual and in-person opportunities to support these diverse learning needs, as we get a lot of feedback that some people prefer virtual, some people prefer in person, so trying to meet the variety of requests that we receive. And we're also really focusing on that collaboration with other departments, and so that is working with our program services department to make sure that our language is aligned, but also that we're really building on those shared themes of universal design for learning, tiers of intervention, to really make sure that we all are presenting with that aligned, cohesive understanding of our support systems. Moving on, I'd like to highlight the Director Citation and Employee Recognition Rewards. This is an opportunity where employees nominate their colleagues, and these awards represent an important opportunity to highlight the exceptional efforts of our educators, support professionals, and administrators. Tonight, I just wanted to specifically highlight some of the staff that were recognized for their work in special education. And so Denise Sharon was an educational assistant from Centennial Public School who was recognized. Jody Velati is a speech language pathologist in our district. She was also recognized. Jessica Barron is the itinerant teacher for learning disabilities. She was recognized. Deanna Toxopius, she was recognized as an itinerant teacher for assistive technology. And then the educator team at Glebe High School in the Developmental Disabilities Program, Angela Nixon and Darcel McCutcheon were also recognized. This week, I had the opportunity to go to the Ottawa Hospital and be part of the Project Search Orientation Day. And so you'll recall we've talked about Project Search here a couple of times over the last month. This was a very exciting day where we had all three partners in the room together. So we had myself and Deb and the teachers that will be working. We had Live, Work, Play in the room. And we had the majority of the other people in the room participating were members of the Ottawa Hospital team who will be hosting our interns. And so just to remind you, the Project Search is a program for people with intellectual disabilities to gain work experience to prepare them for life beyond high school. And so they'll have the opportunity for daily job training skills throughout 3 internships through various departments in the hospital. So we had all of the managers of these various departments in the room learning about what their responsibility would be in hosting these interns. They were, as I left, they were heading around for a tour of the hospital and to get the opportunity to really dive deep into what those different internships would be. I think this is a fantastic representation of community at its best, seeing school, community, and hospital work coming into to one kind of culminating place where these students will really have the opportunity to build skills, to find a passion, and ideally walk away with employable skills is a really exciting opportunity for our school board to be a part of, and the first Project Search in Ottawa. So thank you, Deb, for your leadership in that. And very excited to bring back highlights in September to the team as that's getting launched. I also wanted to highlight that there was the first annual Say Beautiful fundraiser for Crystal Bay and Clifford Bowie. This was hosted on May 30th at Sir Robert Gordon next door. There were silent auctions and live music, fantastic experience. And it raised over $8,000 that will go to support students in these schools. So congratulations to the team who pulled that together. I wanted to highlight an opportunity for inclusive sport. So staff of our Blind Low Vision team organized an inclusive regional goal ball tournament. This was hosted at John McCrae. Goal ball is an exciting, fast-paced team sport exclusively designed for athletes with visual impairments. Teams of 3 players throw a heavy bell-bearing ball into the opposite net, while defenders use their bodies to block the shots. All players wear blackout masks to ensure a perfectly level playing field. And so blind low vision students and their peers competed against each other. And my understanding is there was a bit of a staff challenge at the end for next year. So we look forward to rising to the occasion next year and joining those students for that. Lastly, I wanted to, on behalf of all the staff here, of course, thank you for your membership in SEAC, your contributions throughout this academic year. The feedback, of course, helps us to set a plan for next year to understand the priorities of the community, for your families, and for your children. And so to help us build that responsive model, we look forward to continuing this ongoing collaboration, appreciate the time together, And of course, reach out if you have any questions or comments as we continue on this journey together. Have a fantastic summer, and thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent Stout. Are there any questions?
Why would he have a question? Here comes a word salad.
Bob, do you have a question?
Maybe I was just waiting for other business to make some comments, so it's not specifically a question to Superintendent Stout, so just put me on hold for the moment.
Is there any new business this evening? Bob?
That's where I'll put my hand. So just following along what the Superintendent Stout just mentioned, I just want to express my gratitude to SEAC and to its members for their constructive engagement and feedback on how to provide better education for students. I certainly have benefited from SEAC and PIC and the town hall meetings that we've had across the district, a couple of rounds of them, which have informed the priorities that the board has taken into account on a daily basis from the decisions that it's made. I want to report back to SEAC that I had made a commitment based on the questions you asked about. Well, the question was asked, why is special education always the first item that's looked at when the board is in deficit and when we are looking at spending cuts? And my commitment to you was this, it would be the last place that I would look. In fact, you'll see in the budget that's going to be released tomorrow that not only has special education budget been maintained, it's been enhanced, which is quite different from last year when you were on this table about this time.
More than
last year.
inflation?
There was some
More than inflation? It's not an enhancement.
There were some rather deep cuts in special education, but that's not the approach that we took this year. We looked at finding savings in central administration and in operations. That's where we looked, and that's really the savings that are the feature of this budget, in addition to, and I could tell all SEAC members that based on the feedback that you've provided, that there will be an increase in educational assistance that will be brought into the school board in the 26-27 budget. So that's additional education assistance. Certainly not the number that we would like, but the trend's going in the right direction. So, I'm happy to hear any other comment that members of SEAC want to provide to me. And I might ask, since Stacey K, our Chief Executive Officer, has been deeply involved with, to invite her to say anything she wants about the budget that will be released tomorrow. Will be discussed at the audit committee meeting tomorrow evening. Back to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Bob.
Chair, I'm happy to provide additional comments if at the pleasure of the table.
Yes, Director Stacey, yes.
Okay, thank you. Yes, we are pleased to be bringing forward the staff recommended budget tomorrow through the Public Audit Committee meeting. As the supervisor has indicated, what we are most proud of is that we have completely protected investment in special education and have increased funding to special education. And that is in the context of declining enrollment. So we have certainly upheld and exceeded the commitments that we have made throughout the school year. And that is evident in what will come forward tomorrow. This is certainly based on the deep engagement and collaboration that has occurred over the course of the year. The information provided by this table, as well as our parent involvement, We've had a lot of deep and rich engagement with our staff, with our school-based leaders, with our frontline educators. And certainly what was evident was the clear alignment about the types of supports and commitments that are required to help us to continue to move forward in a positive direction and make further improvements in student achievement and well-being. Certainly educational assistance was by far the strongest theme that arose throughout all of these discussions. And specifically in the budget tomorrow, there is an increase of 21.5 full-time equivalent positions. So that is a significant increase in investment. As Bob said, we would love that was even more, but in the context of declining enrollment, it was significant. That we were able to do that despite also having to table a budget that did represent a responsible path forward that does get us much closer to a place of financial stability so we can continue to build in the future towards our strategic priorities, which really are student achievement, support that allows all students to be thriving and successful in our schools, and schools that are vibrant places of learning that supports the passions and skills and talents of our diverse students. So I'm very optimistic about the path forward, and certainly there were a lot of difficult decisions that were made over the course of this year. There was significant work done looking at all of our central functions. That work involved ensuring that our resources were student-focused, streamlined and optimized so that every available resource and ability for us to divert discretionary spending were really directed to direct supports needed for students in classrooms and in schools. So certainly not easy work. It's always difficult when we are looking at staff reductions, but the difficult work that was done centrally has allowed us to fulfill our commitments. And those are sustainable and lasting measures that will position us very differently, not to be continually adding to an accumulative deficit, which will allow us the flexibility to make those strategic investments both next year and into the future. Certainly, the documentation will be released tomorrow and available for review. It is a staff recommended budget. It is a requirement that a budget be passed by the end of this month. And we certainly look forward to the discussion and getting into that information in far more detail tomorrow evening.
Is that a questionable thing or?
Chris has his hand up.
Questions? So Jess?
I think there's a hand
Someone
on the
else?
screen, Anthony.
Chris? Okay, we'll start with Chris. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair, and I heard the question, is that a questionable thing? I just, as we were sort of sharing in the Supervisor Lemondone and CEO Kay have offered some information around EA allocations. I'm just wondering if I can get some clarity there and if this is the appropriate place to do that.
I'm certainly happy to take the question, Chris, if I can
Okay.
Answer it.
I appreciate that. So just in regards to, there was a mention of 21.5 FTE equivalent increase. So through the staffing process, the allocation that was given to me was 853.5 for the year. And that is holding in line with last year, so that would indicate that there was no increase. So I guess my question is this 21.5 that I imagine would be brought forward tomorrow, is that in addition to the 853.5 from this year?
Yes.
So a total of 875 EAs?
Yes, it is. So at the time that that information was brought forward, it was only academic staffing that had been finalized. As is our typical practice, non-academic staffing levels are finalized through the budget process. And that is, again, the work that has happened this year. It's very much tied to the release of the technical papers by the Ministry of Education that importantly contain our core education grants. So it's only after we receive that information that we have enough certainty and clarity to complete that process. So with that information and in combination with the work to streamline and optimize and reduce our central supports, it did allow us to increase our investment in educational assistance. So specifically, there are 13.5 additional educational assistants that have come through realignment of our staffing, and then the additional 8 are educational assistants that will be available to serve our students with Indigenous identities. And through the funding that we receive to support students with Indigenous identities, bringing us to a total of 21.5.
Very, very good. Thank you for that clarity. I do appreciate that. Yeah, that is good news.
Jess, did you have a question?
Yeah, I don't have my notes from when we had the budget before, and it's helpful to hear about the academic and non-academic, because it's always a bit murky in my mind about how the budget kind of rolls out, and then the planned budget, and then looking back. So I just wanted to confirm that, so it sounds like the cuts that we had seen previously around social work, psychology, itinerant EA, are those cuts that exist in place, or was that tentative, or obviously all will be revealed tomorrow, but we're here today, so.
Yeah.
So the staffing levels with respect to special education have been protected at the level that we had for this current school year. And what I need to point out is we have had a drop in our enrollment.
Yes.
And the majority of the funding that we receive through core education is directly tied to our average daily enrollment. So the total envelope that we receive next year for special education is reduced. And we have maintained and increased our funding compared to this year. So the delta between what we're funded for special education and what we are spending has actually increased from the current school year to the next school year. So there have been no reductions to any of the non-academic staffing that we had in the current school year. Through the work that we have undertaken with our Indigenous education team, we have also added an additional social worker. So that is an increase to the social work complement year over year.
Any other questions? Yes, Melcha?
So I'm sure it's probably too soon, but do you have any idea in terms of will the EAs be elementary, secondary, or is that just to be determined as needs arise? And
Yeah, so that's certainly a question that is best answered by Kate and her team.
So as every year, we have the EA allocation process, and so we actually have just opened up the form again for principals. That happened last week. where they are putting in any additional addendums, so any new students that may have arrived, any students who they know have transferred to their school, perhaps from another one. Of course, we still have a list of schools who reached out to us once they received their EA allocation, and so the team will go back into that process and look to allocate according to need. So it won't be specific elementary or secondary. It will really be based on where we see the information and the data that tells us that more support is required at a specific site.
Can I do one follow-up? You said that there were, that 8 EAs will specifically be for students with Indigenous identities. Now, is there not, is that Jordan's principal money, or it's separate from that?
It's separate. So,
Okay.
again, there are far better subject area experts on those topics.
Sure.
But Jordan's Principal and Child First are initiatives that are funded through the federal government.
Right.
And those programs have faced significant changes in recent years. So the 8 additional EAs supporting students with Indigenous identities is directly from OCDSB funds.
Right, so sort of to make up for the fact that has Jordan's principal, has that tapered off, or is there less funding through
So a family, Jordan's Principal and Child First Initiative funding is accessed through a family. So a family applies for that funding, and that funding is directly given to a specific student. And so in the last, I guess, year or so, that funding model has shifted slightly in that application process. And so I think it's safe to say that in response, we wanted to make sure that there were funds that were available within this particular envelope of the OCDSB budget that could be put towards supporting students with Indigenous identities. And so we work very closely with the assistant principal of Indigenous education to really understand where those needs are and be responsive in the allocation of those specific educational assistance.
All right, thank you.
It is, I'll just add, we of course are a tightly tied ecosystem. So when we have educational assistants that are tied to students with their Indigenous identities, it does mean that other educational assistants are then available to support other students within. So it is a net increase in terms of available support for students requiring that.
Any other questions? I have one. How is the budget approved? Like, who, when?
It's an excellent question, and it is directly tied to our status as a supervised board. So tomorrow evening, myself and the finance team bring forward and present the staff recommended budget. And then it is reviewed and considered by our ministry appointed supervisor, by Mr. Palamidon. And with his approval, it is then brought forward to the ministry. And that does all have to be completed by the end of this month.
I could add, Mr. Chair, that it is being brought forward to the audit committee, which is a public meeting, so where delegations are permitted. And I will be seeking the advice of the audit committee members on the staff recommended budget.
And it's not even published. What's with the delegate on?
Thank you.
One other point I would add too, that after tomorrow's meeting, if any parent or a staff member, anyone wants to, has any concerns or issues on the budget, they're welcome to email me. I'm happy to consider any other feedback that comes in related to the budget the staff has recommended.
Thank you. Any final questions? No? All right.
Sorry,
Yes,
I'm always
sorry.
late on that, sorry. The audit committee meeting tomorrow, we have to attend in person.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
Sorry,
Blanchard?
can I ask one more question about, the itinerant EAs? And I just, I'm curious, if you were tracking that, because it was new, the model this year, and it sounds excellent, and I just was curious if you have any data on that, whether it's, you know, tracking the actual improvements of students through that, or even anecdotal information, yeah.
Thanks for raising that. You're absolutely right. We received a lot of positive feedback from principals, from staff, and from the central itinerant EAs themselves. So just to remind folks, the shift in the model was that our elementary team, our secondary team already functioned this way, but our elementary team was assigned to a small group of schools. And what it meant was that each of them spent at least a half a day a week in a school. And so they became part of the school team. The school team knew when to expect them, and so that was a really helpful piece of shift. And they were able to be part of that multidisciplinary wraparound support and planning that was going into supporting students. They were also able to turn their mind to proactive, different strategies that could support students. And so what that looked like was our itinerant EAs were leading small groups around Kids Have Stress Too, with roots of empathy, all sorts of stress lessons, these sorts of things. So they became active members in the classroom alongside educators, leading these groups, coaching staff along if they were struggling with how to support a particular student. So I know that Leanne Forrest, our program manager of educational assistance, has lots of data. It's one of her favorite things, and so certainly I can look to get some specifics. But I think it's safe to say that thousands of groups were run this year. Each Kids Have Stress Too, for example, is an 8-week block. And so if you're able to fit in even 3 8-week blocks in one school, I was able to attend one of the intermediate schools hosted, the culminating event was a fair that the students put on for the rest of the school to come around and try different stress busting activities. And so the grade 7 and 8s were leading this, and the younger students were coming into the school, coming into the space to kind of learn about deep breathing or learn about, finger tracing your breath and these sorts of things. So it's really, that's just a concrete example of how the itinerant EA was able to lead this group alongside the teacher in their class, supporting health curriculum, supporting general well-being, and then mentoring the younger students in those kinds of stress-busting activities. So I think that if you ask any principal in our school board, they would probably tell you that it was one of the single most meaningful switches that we've made in the last few years. And if you ask the IEAs themselves, I think they would say that it has added value and meaning to the work that they are doing, because they feel connected to those school communities. They feel like they're making a difference on a daily basis, and it's not just reactionary, it's quite proactive. And so we're excited to be continuing with that model, and we'll certainly be happy to bring back some concrete data for you next year.
Any other questions? Is there any other new business this evening? Okay, so I have one. From last meeting, I mentioned that I have a motion or 2 motions to present, and that I had sent around previously. And I sent it to Sue for consideration. And she got back to me asking for me to narrow the scope and clarify it and make it simpler. So which I did. I looked at it very carefully and also made sure that it was within the, which it already was, but I made sure it was very tightly within the SEAC roles and responsibilities. And then I further, after doing that, as requested by Sue, I also further took I combined it into one motion instead of 2. And then I got further feedback from the originators of the first version of the motion to make sure that it actually had all the requirements originally requested, and so I made further changes to make sure it did. And then, so now I have one simplified motion, and overall it's about student instructional access and access to specialized supports. The item seeks annual public reporting and written clarification on students with special education needs who experience significant interruptions to instruction, including exclusions, reduced schedules, class evacuations, or prolonged alternative arrangements, and whether these students are able to access timely specialized supports, programming, the SPC placements, review processes, and family recourse mechanisms. So SEAC and the board can identify systemic barriers, improve transparency, and support informed recommendations. So this even deals like, so for example, the delegation today and many of the delegations we've had recently, and even at the town halls. It's that new business here I'm talking about is actually planned into the schedule for September. What I suggested is that I'll have Sue send it around before that meeting in September for distribution via email to us as a committee for review. And ideally, I think it would be good to get feedback if you have any suggestions for changes, any improvements, amendments, things you don't agree with or anything like that, that we can try to refine and improve on. That way we don't end up having a very long discussion or get into confusion in September, and try to be able to vote on it and get through with something. I don't know. And do you have any suggestions on how we can improve the process? This might be one of the, we haven't done many motions so far as committees, other than the one for the trustees that we have for the SBCs. And that was a fairly simple one. This one has the motion and then at least 2 resolutions within the motion, and they're quite detailed resolutions. And
So you would send it to us, Anthony, to review before September. We would try to provide you feedback before
Yeah.
then, so that we come to the meeting kind of ready to,
yeah, ideally reviewed ahead of time so we don't get.
I think that would be so helpful to be able to go through it in advance, so that we're not trying to look after.
Yeah. I've designed it to be fairly tight already, so that there's not many loose ends. And it's already tightened quite a bit, following Sue's feedback, and also the feedback from the originators of the motion, or the root source of why this motion came to be, and also the wise feedback from trustees who helped refine the earlier versions of the motion, and so yeah. All right, and seeing no new further business, I'll move on to the upcoming meeting dates. Please note that there are no more scheduled meetings for this school year. The September SEAC meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, September 9th, 2026. And then I now declare the meeting adjourned.
So Stacy, can you answer me, Stacy?
Recording stopped.
Can you answer me if this is my 16th budget and the meeting is less than a day away? Why isn't the budget public knowledge? It's always public knowledge. It's always posted the Friday before at 4 o'clock. If you're so proud of it, why can't we see it? It's a simple question. You're the CEO. What? She has an obligation. They made a commitment to be transparent. It's supposed to be posted, Kate. No, it should be posted. It should have been posted Friday at 4 o'clock. That's how it works here.
So when they can post it, they
No, she knows what it is, he knows what it is, why isn't it posted? These people have a right to know. You're claiming you're not cutting? What, are you cutting superintendent, Stacy? Is that what you're cutting? Because you're cutting lead hands, the people who run our schools at night, who make sure they run well? Do you not know anything about risk management? You cut our lowest paid workers who keep our buildings running. And you think that's gonna balance the budget? Like this is, I have talked to so many principals, I have not had talked to one principal who has told me their EA allocation has gone up next year. How is that? I talked to all these principals. Don't look at me like that. Be respectful.
There are lots of schools that have been actually.
Oh, well, let's see the list. Why don't you send us a chart? Send us a chart of what they got this year and what they're getting next year. Send the chart. Be transparent. It's so simple to do an Excel chart. You don't have to do this big gobbledygook stuff. Just do a simple chart that people can read really easily. Why don't you do that? And are you adding back the social worker you cut? Are you adding back the speech and language person you cut? Are you adding those people back, or are you just leaving those cuts? Well, they're saying they're not cutting off. Bullshit. It's all bullshit. They cut in the middle of the year, don't forget that. Just like they did this year.
Why can't she answer simple questions? Because she knows if she engages, then there's a thing. If she doesn't engage, there's no.
But she's transparent. Good job, good job.
Thank you for being nice.
Very good.
Thank you. Although we didn't get what we wanted, thank you.
No, you know what?